following reading is from How to Transform Your Life, A Blissful Journey by Geshe Kelsang Gyatso. The supreme wealth of compassion. During the meditation break, we should continually maintain our feeling of compassion for all living beings. Whenever we encounter anyone, we should recall how they are suffering and develop compassion for them. Then, just seeing a living being will be like finding a rare and precious treasure. This is because the compassion we experience upon meeting others is a supreme inner wealth that is an inexhaustible source of benefit for us in both this and future lives. As mentioned earlier, external wealth cannot help us in our future lives. And even in this life, it is not certain that it will bring us happiness, for it is often the cause of much anxiety and can even endanger our life. Rich people have particular worries that poor people never have. For example, they often worry about thieves, about investments and interest rates, and about losing their money and social status. This is a heavy burden for them. Whereas most people can go out freely whenever they choose, many wealthy and famous people need bodyguards and may even worry about being kidnapped. Rich people have little freedom or independence and can never fully relax. The higher up we are in the world, the further we have to fall. It is safer to be nearer the bottom. No matter how much we succeed in improving our external conditions, they can never bring us pure happiness, nor provide real protection from suffering. True happiness cannot be found in this impure world. Instead of striving to obtain external wealth, it would be far better if we sought the internal wealth of compassion and wisdom. For unlike external wealth, this can never deceive us and will definitely bring us the peace and happiness we desire. If we are skillful, friends can be like treasure chests, from whom we can obtain the precious wealth of love, compassion, patience, and so forth. For our friends to function in this way, however, our love for them must be free from attachment. If our love for our friends is mixed with strong attachment, it will be conditional upon them behaving in ways that please us. And as soon as they do something we disapprove of, our liking for them may turn to anger. In fact, the most common objects of our anger are often our friends, not our enemies or strangers. If we often get angry with our friends, we are transforming them into maras. A mara, or obstructing demon, is someone or something that interferes with our spiritual practice. No one is a mara from his or her own side. But if we allow people to stimulate in us deluded minds such as anger, strong attachment, or self-cherishing, we transform them into maras for us. A mara does not need to have horns and a terrifying expression. Someone who appears to be a good friend, who flatters us and leads us into meaningless activities, can be a greater obstacle to our spiritual practice. Whether our friends are precious treasures or maras depends entirely upon us. If we are sincerely practicing patience, compassion, and love, they can be like priceless jewels. But if we are often getting angry with them, they can become maras. We would be delighted to find a treasure chest buried beneath the ground, or to win a large sum of money, and would consider ourselves very fortunate. However, if we consider the deceptiveness of external wealth and the superiority of the inner wealth of virtue, how much more fortunate should we feel whenever we meet another living being, the potential source of limitless inner wealth. For sincere, compassionate practitioners, just seeing other living beings, speaking with them, or merely thinking about them is like finding buried treasure. All their encounters with other people serve to enhance their compassion, and even everyday activities such as shopping or talking to friends become causes of enlightenment. Of all virtuous minds, compassion and wisdom are supreme. Compassion purifies our mind, and when our mind is pure, its objects also become pure. There are many accounts of spiritual practitioners who, by developing strong compassion, purified their minds of the negativity that had long been obstructing their spiritual progress. For example, Asanga, a great scholar who lived in India in the 5th century AD, meditated in an isolated mountain cave in order to gain a vision of Buddha Maitreya. After 12 years, he still had not succeeded, and feeling discouraged, abandoned his retreat. On his way down the mountain, he came across an old dog lying in the middle of the path. Its body was covered in maggot-infested sores, and it seemed close to death. This sight induced within Asanga an overwhelming feeling of compassion for all living beings trapped within samsara. As he was painstakingly removing the maggots from the dying dog, Buddha Maitreya suddenly appeared to him. Maitreya explained that he had been with Asanga since the beginning of his retreat, but due to the impurities in Asanga's mind, Asanga had not been able to see him. It was Asanga's extraordinary compassion that had finally purified the karmic obstructions preventing him from seeing Maitreya. In reality, the dog had been an emanation of Buddha Maitreya all along. Maitreya emanated as a suffering dog for the purpose of arousing Asanga's compassion. We can see from this how Buddhas manifest in many different ways to help living beings. Anyone who dies with a mind of pure compassion will definitely be reborn in a pure land, where he or she will never again have to experience the sufferings of samsara. The Bodhisattva Geshe Kelsang's main wish was to be reborn in hell, so that he could help the beings suffering there. However, as he lay on his deathbed, he perceived a vision of the Pure Land and realized that his wish would not be fulfilled. Instead of being reborn in hell, he had no choice but to go to the Pure Land. This was because his compassion had purified his mind to such an extent that from the point of view of his own experience, impure objects such as hell realms no longer existed. For him, everything was pure. However, although Geshe Kelsang took rebirth in a Pure Land, he was able to help hell beings through his emanations. We may find these stories difficult to believe, but this is because we do not understand the relationship between our mind and its objects. As Milarepa said, our mind and its objects are in truth the same nature, but due to ignorance we believe they are different natures. We feel that the world exists out there, independent of the mind that perceives it, but in reality, objects are totally dependent on the minds that perceive them. This impure world that we presently experience exists only in relation to our impure mind. Once we have completely purified our mind, through training in exchanging self with others, compassion and so forth, this impure world will disappear, and we will perceive a new, pure world. Our sense that things exist separately from our mind, with their own fixed, inherent natures, comes from our ignorance. When we understand the true nature of things, we will see that our world is like a dream, in that everything exists as a mere appearance to mind. We will realize that we can change our world simply by changing our mind, and that if we wish to be free from suffering, all we need to do is purify our mind. Having purified our own mind, we will then be in a position to fulfill our compassionate wish by showing others how to do the same. Considering all these benefits of compassion, we should resolve to make use of every opportunity to develop it. The most important thing is to put the teachings on compassion and wisdom into practice, for both our own and others' purposes. Otherwise, for us, they will remain just empty words. The nature and functions of wisdom are explained in the section on training in higher wisdom in the chapter Meaningful Objects. Pure compassion is a mind that finds the suffering of others unbearable, but it does not make us depressed. In fact, it gives us tremendous energy to work for others and to complete the spiritual path for their sake. It shatters our complacency and makes it impossible to rest content with the superficial happiness of satisfying our worldly desires. Yet in its place, we will come to know a deep inner peace that cannot be disturbed by changing conditions. It is impossible for strong delusions to arise in a mind filled with compassion. If we do not develop delusions, external circumstances alone have no power to disturb us. So when our mind is governed by compassion, it is always at peace. This is the experience of all those who have developed their compassion beyond the limited compassion normally felt for those we feel close to, into a selfless compassion for all living beings. Developing compassion and wisdom, and helping those in need whenever possible, is the true meaning of human life. By increasing our compassion, we come closer to enlightenment and to the fulfillment of our deepest wishes. How kind living beings are to act as the objects of our compassion. How precious they are. If there were no suffering beings left for us to help, Buddhas would have to emanate them for us. Indeed, if we consider the story of Maitreya and Asanga, we will see that we have no way of knowing for sure whether those we are presently trying to help are not, in fact, emanations of Buddha manifested for our benefit. The indication that we have mastered the meditations on cherishing others and compassion is that whenever we meet another person, even someone who is harming us, we genuinely feel as if we had found a rare and precious treasure.